Hello, good evening, and welcome, gentle listeners. How are you all doing? This is episode 0 of the Warhammer and Wings podcast with myself, Wayne, and this is my esteemed colleague and associate, Will. How are you doing, Will?
I'm not too bad.
That was short and sweet, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Quite wooden, wasn't it?
It doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter. But I suppose it's always going to be difficult at this point, isn't it? So let's just introduce ourselves to you guys, the listeners. I'm Wayne, and I'm here to talk to you about Warhammer. I know I sound like I should be knocking at your door, asking you if you want a little book, but I'm not. I just want to talk about the thing that I enjoy doing and basically want to share it with other people.
Yeah. Well, I can take over from there. Yeah, I think I'll echo that sentiment. We basically started this podcast because we're two guys, I guess you could probably say middle-aged at this point, as depressing as that sounds. But we decided that we'd just come together to chat about Warhammer, but from a different stance to what we usually hear. We just want to have fun. We're not ever going to enter tournaments. We're just two guys that have a laugh with it, really.
I mean, we may enter a tournament at some point.
Maybe. I think it's probably a good point to note that we are very much still learning. We are in the adolescence of learning the rules and everything at the moment. So let's put that out there at the start.
I was going to say, before we enter a tournament, we should probably actually learn how to play any of the games that we're interested in the first instance. But yeah. So as Will said, all joking aside, we've ended up being friends through the medium of Warhammer, and some of the conversations that we've had as we've been kind of learning to play the game together. So we've both jumped on after significant amounts of time out of the hobby, or been tangentially interested in it, on the fringes of the community, you might say, interested in the lore, painting models, that kind of thing, but not actually playing the game and the social aspect and that interaction. So that's where we are now. We've both had a long-standing interest in Warhammer. I think that's safe to say. We've talked about it, and I'm sure we will talk about it on the show going forward. But we've never actually got to grips, either of us, with the actual playing of the game. So that's where we are now. We by no means experts. We're not metagamers or anything like that, and we don't want to be. We enjoy the fluffy aspect of the lore, and that's, I think, why we work together so well, don't we? I mean, we both enjoy playing the fluffy lists. We're not trying to win, as it were. We're just trying to have fun playing the game.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. I mean, we both picked the armies we liked on thematic rules rather than anything else because we thought the models looked cool. And I think you've also missed out one of the biggest points that also explains why the podcast is called what it is. But we basically get together to play Spearhead on Thursday nights, and we eat chicken wings, and that is something else that we bonded over in the infancy of our friendship.
That's very true. The chicken wings are particularly tasty, and I'm sure we'll talk about our mutual love of hot sauce. In fact, when we rate stuff, we should do it on Scoville units instead. I'll find out what the Warhammer equivalent of Scoville units are, if there is such a thing. I don't know.
And hey, who knows, if this takes off, maybe we can market our own hot sauce one day.
I would love that. I'd call it Death's Bite. That's a good one. That's almost like a faction rule, isn't it? A regiment rule, sorry.
Yeah, that's actually quite good. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't lean into something making it blood red with a vampire on it, knowing what you like to play as.
That would be something I'd do.
Yeah, and I suppose I could do something bright orange, some sort of Fire Slayer sauce.
Fire. You could call it Fire Slayer, couldn't you?
Good, but James Workshop might come and bang my door down.
Just spell fire with a PH or something. I mean, they did it with Fire and Flood, didn't they? In the Warcry box recently. So,
I mean, this could be an episode in itself, couldn't it?
I was going to say we could talk a lot about Warhammer themed hot sauces. This I think is exactly what the rest of the podcast is going to be like, to be absolutely honest. So if you've made it past this introduction section, then you're probably going to enjoy the rest of it, to be honest. And how we are, we're well, this is just us, isn't it?
Yeah,
nothing more.
I mean, this is just how we talk when we are sat across the table from each other in my dining room most of the time. So it's no different. We just have microphones in front of us.
Yep.
This, to me, it is a really weird dynamic, because this is where I sit for work, and this is the computer I look at for work. Well, it isn't, but my MacBook is the same as my work MacBook, and it's very strange. But I can work through it.
Consistency. Well, we can always get together and do these in person as well. So, like I said, we've got options, guys. We've got options. If you want to hear more of what we've got to say and what we're talking about, so let us know. Shall we? Do we ask people to comment, like, and subscribe? Shall we do that? Do you want to comment, like, and subscribe? Do that.
So.
Do that.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I haven't looked at Podbean, but I'm assuming you can like and comment and subscribe. I'd be very surprised if you couldn't.
Yeah. Well, we'll let people know how to contact us right at the end of the show, but if you can find us on Instagram and such things. So just Google, I guess, Warhammer and Wings. Warhammer and Wings. Just Google Warhammer and Wings, and you'll find us somewhere.
Yeah, you'll probably find us where you would expect to find us, apart from
on
TikTok.
The internet. Yeah, we're not doing any dances. No.
I'm glad we cleared that up. Got into the hobby when the Lord of the Rings films came out, and Games Workshop released the first edition of the strategy battle game. I was completely blind to any form of tabletop wargaming at that point. I just fell in love with Lord of the Rings after watching the films, reading it, and realized that I could go and buy some plastic and play with them, really. It was very much a case that I was in my early teens at the time, didn't have a lot of money, saved up a bit of pocket money, had a paper round. I know that sounds really twee, but that's what it was, and I would spend it on Warhammer. But there was no rhyme or reason to what I bought apart from what models I thought looked cool at the time. 1 week, Boromir would be my favourite character, so I'd buy the metal blister pack with him in it, and then the next week it might be a box of orcs or whatever took my fancy that week. But a couple of years down the line, I dipped my toe into playing. I'm sure that that game has moved on and the rules probably look completely different, but at the time it seemed like a fairly simple game for a young lad to pick up, and there was a fair buzz around it at the time. And then, the inevitable happens. You sort of get 15, 16, skateboards, girls, that kind of thing becomes more important. And, I kind of fell away from the hobby for a time. I always used to come back to 40k, read a lot of the novels. I'd pick up a box of Space Marines every now and then, try get into it, but didn't really have a lot of friends that played. I didn't really have a lot of people to sort of share the interest with. So, yeah, it kind of came in peaks and troughs for a lot of time until the Horus Heresy. Till that happened, and then books they consumed me. But it was always more of the lore side of things at that point. And realistically, now this is the first time I've played since then. So, yeah, I'm coming back to this hobby. Age of Sigmar is still new to me. When I was looking at Warhammer, it was the older version before the end times. So, I'm learning as I go, but it's a nice change of pace from what I used to do, and it's nice to be an adult and have some money to be able to afford to do it.
There's some really interesting points there. So I think there's a couple of things that you may have told me, but I have definitely forgot. So I'm just going to ask you now, just for my own information. 40k, who's your chapter? What's your flavour of Marines?
Oh, see, that's a loaded question. It can change week in, week out. It really can, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was never able to stick to anything. I'm very much lean into the lore side of things. It can be that a certain writer can grab me by writing about space wolves in, the 31st millennium, and I gravitate towards them for a while. Then I might read, something in Warhammer 40,000 about Blood Angels, and a character might just grab me, and I'll think I've got to go out and buy, you know, the Sanguinor model or something like that. You know, my brain's a bit scatty in that sense, and because I'm never really focused on a specific aspect of 40k, I think that's why it never kind of took off in my mind, and it's why, you know, I never gained any traction to play, because it was always just pieces here and there.
Got you. So in your current hobby space, then what are your interests there? Let's tell this. Obviously, I know a little bit of the one army, the one faction ish that you're into at the moment, but where are your interests currently in the hobby sphere?
I think for now the main idea is to try and get a grasp on what Age of Sigmar is and means, because it is quite new to me. And, you know, we had the conversation where I started reading the first of the new Gotrek novels, where he's brand new into the mortal realms, and it's nice to go through that journey kind of alongside him with a character that I'm familiar with from when I was a kid. You know, having come from the old world to the mortal realms, that's been a nice transition for me, and especially because I'm, you know, I've gravitated towards fire slayers. It kind of makes sense that everything's lined up accidentally there. But yeah, I'm just trying to learn about where the hobby is now, and just to have fun with it, really. You know, it's nice to be able to embrace something that I never really got the chance to, and to have found, you know, somebody to play with that kind of shares the ideals that I have. You know, we're not about fighting over rules. We just want to have a laugh and, you know, chat through things and do little conversions here and there, do little obscure paint jobs that don't mean anything to anybody else. You know, just do our own thing, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting to kind of hear, and I think I kind of like echo everything that. Well, I don't think I do echo everything that you've said on that. You're absolutely right on the motivations we've got there. I suppose then I'll do the same thing for me. So I think I've been in or around the hobby a little bit longer than you, but that's probably because I'm also a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
So I actually got into the hobby in almost its inception. So my first exposure to Warhammer was with Rogue Trader, and a friend at school had the Rogue Trader manual, and then I got hooked on that, despite not even ever being into Judge Dredd or anything. There was that kind of British sci-fi aesthetic, never did anything for me, but there was something about the setting and the way it was portrayed in the Rogue Trader manual, the Rogue Trader book, whatever you want to call it. It was the softback it had, I remember it, and I bugged my parents to get me one, and I read it cover to cover, and it actually motivated me to learn some other bits and pieces. So at that point I would have been 7 years old in 87, I think. So yeah, I probably got about 15 years longer experience than you, but much in the same way, I'd never actually played it, and I got the second edition starter box set, with all like lovely garish artwork on the front, that Blood Angel captain with the power fist, and it was all glorious.
I know what you mean.
Red and yellow, and it had the cardboard dreadnought and all of the different books. And I was very much a collector. I tried to play the game with a friend, but there was nothing. We didn't have anybody to guide us through. Our local games workshop was very elitist almost, and they weren't very welcoming of like 8-9-year-old kids at the time, certainly in our town. So I gravitated more towards the learning to paint. My dad at a younger age was into model cars and boats and stuff, so I started painting in Humbrol lead-based paints.
We've never had this conversation, but I did exactly the same, but it was my dad and trains rather than cars. And the same, we'll put it out there that we did grow up in completely different towns, but it sounds like we had the same experience in the local games workshops. So
yeah, and I think it was a different time, wasn't it? But you know, that never hampered my it kind of never hampered my love for the lore. And there was something alongside that, the parity, I think, and the juxtaposition between the superheroes and the comics I was into, but also this darker, the grim dark aesthetic was something that I found and still find very appealing. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in future episodes, perhaps. But yeah, I remember getting Rogue Trader, and then I went into the RTB01 box set of the multi-part Space Marines, and for a long time I collected, I painted Crimson Fists, and then I moved on to Space Wolves before finally settling on Dark Angels, and that's where my 40k interests still lie. It's all with the Dark Angels. I absolutely love the lore. I love everything around them. I love the aesthetic. I really like that. And I was never really into Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and as much as I love Lord of the Rings, I have several Lord of the Rings tattoos. I read Lord of the Rings every year. I never played the board game.
Yeah, I read it once a year. There we go. Didn't know that either.
Who knew? Well, there we go. So more parity there. And it's happening live, dear listeners. It's happening live. Oh, well, pre-recorded, but live.
That's just...
Yeah, so I never played the board game, the Fantasy Battle game, and I have no interest in playing anything with that, but I also never played Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I was never into the whole rank and flank. For me, having specific characters that I could relate to in the lore was what I found compelling, and then transferring that over into painting projects. And then, as we do, as you did as well, I think as the majority of hobbyists do, through my formative years, I think I dropped out of the hobby after about 10 or 11 years, just as I was going to university. So from 98 up until I kind of finished my formal education and such. So I did quite a lot in academia for a while. So it was maybe 18 to 20 years I think I had out of the hobby. And I got back into it in probably about 10 years ago now, maybe 11 years ago. And it was tangentially through my love of another franchise, Transformers. I started customizing and painting my Transformers collection, which I love. And I was with a friend, we walked past a Games Workshop in my hometown, and I saw Primaris, and I was like, wow, Space Marines look really cool now. And I'd still been aware of them. They were there on the background, but it was just never something that I kind of fell back into. And as an engagement present, he gave me his half of the Dark Millennium box set, I want to say it is.
Yeah,
the ones that had right. They had the Marines, and then there was the Nurgle.
Yeah.
The newer Nurgle sculpts.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Dark Millennium. Maybe it wasn't Dark Millennium. Dark Imperium, perhaps.
Yeah,
it was.
I know which one you mean. Yeah,
yeah. The box set with the newer Nurgle Space Marine sculpts, the Death Guard. Death Guard is what they're called. Sorry. Yeah, he gave me that, and then it was all down to him. All of the things that have happened in the past 12 years, and to be absolutely honest, I could not be happier to be back in the hobby. I mean, this is the thing that I do to relax at any point now. I mean, it's all I do. This is my hobby. I don't have many other hobbies. I'm a standard nerd. Yes, I'm into Aliens and Predator and Transformers and stuff, but any of the downtime that I'm not doing actual adulting, I just immerse myself in Warhammer, and I've over the past couple of years fallen into Age of Sigmar in 3rd edition. Still never got around to really playing it, and then 4th edition hit, and I love it. But I also equally I do play a little bit of Kill Team, and I did the previous edition of that, not got into the newer edition. So yeah, I've got kind of my fingers in a couple of pies, as it were. I enjoy Warcry, but I've got this urge to play full fat Age of Sigmar, and I did with 3rd edition, but I needed to paint an entire army, and I did that quite slowly. So yeah, that's what's brought me here, and now I have a multitude of armies, and like you implied earlier, Will, I'm a sucker for vampires. Ah.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that you're probably a little further on getting back into the hobby than me. I say a little, that's probably putting it as an understatement. But yeah, I'm very much recently back into the hobby, but I quickly learned that I was going to be all in, and I think that's a fair assumption that I've gone as all in as I can really without going mad. I mean, like you said, if I'm not working, if I'm not doing the chores, if I'm not doing what I have to do, in daily life, I'm reading about Warhammer, I'm looking at people's paint jobs online, I'm rereading the rules, I'm playing it with you. It's on my mind a lot, and I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, I think it's got one of those things. And if there's something about the universe that Games Workshop, or I'm going to say Games Workshop, but what I actually mean is the individual creators that contributed towards it, the Gav Thorpes, the Jervis Johnsons, all of the people that we all know and respect. The universe that they've crafted, be that 40k, Age of Sigmar, the old world, whatever. This cumulative universe is so rich, so diverse, so huge and captivating. If you find something in it that interests you, then you can spend years of your life delving into that specific thing. I mean, it was only earlier this week, wasn't it? I mean, it was yesterday at the time of recording. We were doing our weekly Warhammer and Wings in person, playing some Warhammer, eating some chicken wings, and Will looked across the table at me. Our eyes met, and we shared living in Britain. No, I'm joking. He mentioned something about his Fire Slayers, some of the lore, and he's like, was it Grimnir?
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, you know about Grimnir, don't you?" And I just like looked at him, had like a blank look on my face, and it's almost this look of this abject disappointment in your face, Will, of like, how do you not know about this?
Yeah, I think I saw a tumbleweed going through the back garden at the time as well. There was a silence.
That's it, and it kind of it gives a point to what we're saying there, that the universe is so large. Even though, yes, I know who the Fire Slayers are. I know they're hot dwarfs, the fiery dwarfs. They do. That conversation sparked a whole gamut of things that I literally had no idea for. I mean, I had some things that I thought were just aesthetic choices as to how they looked. I mean, yes, I appreciate they are, but the lorical implications of what those runes are, where they came from, who Grimnir was, the whole gods thing, even though I know a little bit about Sigmar and I know more about Nagash and that side of the lore, it just goes to show that you can be really into something, and at this point I'm genuinely interested in this topic and invested in learning more about it, and I just had no idea that was all completely new to me. And I loved learning about it.
Yeah, I think there's obviously going to be a flip side of that conversation where you drop something into a conversation about, let's say, Nagash, that I have no knowledge about, apart from really high level stuff. And they're the kind of discussions that we just naturally fall into, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's like I say, it's completely arbitrary whether you know something or you don't know something. I think there's a lot of implied, is that the right word? I think a lot of people think that if you say you're into Warhammer, you know all of these things, and you don't. Your knowledge scape can be kind of shallow and wide, or narrow and deep in some respects. And I think, yeah, all right, there's some people out there that have just like a huge amount of knowledge on Warhammer in general, or Age of Sigmar, 40k. But the majority of us, I think, we kind of skim the surface of all of that world. I mean, it wasn't up until recently when we were talking again. This is a prime example, and I think sharing this sort of experience as well is kind of why we want to do this podcast, and what we want to talk about is to kind of connect with other people about it. That it's okay to not know stuff about something that you're massively into. So we were chatting about Age of Sigmar. It's our primary gaming system, I think it's fair to say. I mean, we're not just going to talk about AOS all the time. We will be talking about 40k lore and stuff. But in this example, we're talking about the mortal realms and the different planes of existence and stuff. And I was telling Will that I'd just recently finished reading The End Times. And there was just a whole conversation that came off of the back of that about different characters and how they related, and how that then spawned what is now the Age of Sigmar realmscape and all of the things in there. The actual relationships between certain characters and how that gave rise to it, and how we moved from the old world to the current setting and the timeline and things. And up until reading those, I had no idea about it, and it was just something that Will said about a random character's name, that something clicked into place about how, I can't remember who it was. It was one of the elf dudes. Was it Teclis or Alariel?
I think I was talking about Malineth, and I think you thought I was talking about somebody else.
That's right. I thought you were. I thought you were talking about Maratha.
That's the one. Yeah.
And we went into this all kind of reciprocal learning spiral of Will was telling me something and I was telling him something. It was like this backwards and forwards, as where there was filling in the gaps of the knowledge that were kind of bringing us both up to speed on things. And I think it's that kind of experience that I want in the hobby. It's not just the playing of the game, not just the rolling of the dice. It's literally those social interactions with somebody that was getting as excited as I was getting excited to have those conversations. And it's like, oh, did you know this? Oh, did you know that? And it's like, even if you're wrong about something and you're being corrected about it, it's done in an exciting, passionate, and engaging way. And that is the wonderful thing about this hobby for me. That is absolutely what I want to do after a hard day at work, after all of the pressures of being an adult, all of the real world things that we have to do, being able to escape into a world that is so massively rich and engaging like that. I mean, it just puts a smile on my face, and that takes a lot, because I'm a right miserable sod half the time.
Definitely are, but no, I don't think I could have put that better myself. I mean, this whole thing for me is entirely what you said. It's an escape. You know, it's something to look forward to while I'm at work, or while I'm cutting the grass, while I'm, taking the dog out for a walk in the rain. I know I've got some models to build when I come home, or I've got some to paint, or I've got a new book to read, or I've found something in an obscure article from White Dwarf from 3 years ago that I think Arnie had talked to Wayne about this. It's this whole mentality of getting excited for a hobby and getting this involved in something. I wish I'd have done this sooner. I wish this had been this exciting for me back at, the time when I first got into it. But whatever the circumstances were, they're very different now, and it just feels like the right time to be doing this. And, you said you naturally gravitate towards a faction, an army, whatever that might be. And yeah, you kind of focus on that, and that becomes quite, defined. And then when you're looking outside and you're just learning these little bits of knowledge here and there, and it's finding the little links between, well, why are these guys are this? It can be really small things, and that's what I get excited about. And it is genuine passion that we both have. I think one for the universe, genuinely just to learn. I think we're both similar there. And yeah, we just get to have fun and roll some dice while we're doing everything else. And yeah, I think that's in a nutshell why we do it, really.
Yeah. And that is absolutely what we want to, I think, share with people, because I think it's fairly evident from the conversation that we've just had that we enjoy talking about it. We may not always be right, and we may, and I say we may, we are 100%. I would be super surprised if we say nothing wrong and don't get corrected, because A, this is the internet, and B, we're talking about Warhammer, and both of those things have very opinionated people that like to correct people whenever they're wrong.
We are going to get names wrong. We are going to get pronunciations wrong. We're going to get place names wrong. It's, when we're talking about the games that we play, there'll be people screaming at the other end telling us that we've done something wrong or in the wrong order. But, we're still learning. And at the same time, we're just here to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are, not, despite both having rather glorious beards, I might say, we are not neckbeards by any stretch of the imagination. Yes. So that's why we're here. I think that is why we're here. Doing the podcast, I think, as well, is worth saying at this point, is we are going to have kind of a structure to how we're going to do this going forward as well. We're not just going to have like random rambling conversations, but this being the first episode, the pilot, as it were, I think is kind of just having a free-flowing conversation is probably the way forward, just to kind of give people a taste, hopefully, an inkling, a sample of what we're actually like, Will.
Tidbit. Whatever you want to call it. I think, yeah, this is genuinely how our conversations go when we are together in person. I mean, we don't live very far away from each other, and we meet up quite regularly. We try and do it at least once a week, but this is how it goes. Whether we are either on Zoom, building models, doing a bit of painting, or if we're sat around my table rolling dice, we are having these conversations. And naturally they're going to gravitate away from Warhammer sometimes, because both of us, if a thought pops in our head, we're going to talk about it. So you'll probably find we might deviate, but yeah, it's always going to come back to Warhammer, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, it is kind of the name of the podcast, so it's kind of implied that we will talk about Warhammer and also occasionally chicken wings, which are the greatest of foods.
The greatest.
So perhaps we'll just get on to the next part, shall we?
Let's move on.
Should we do that? Yeah, let's.
I like it when people do wacky things with plastic. I like to get inspired. I like ideas. Even if it's something I'm never going to do, I see ideas or conversions online, and sometimes they come to fruition, like, the one that I'm probably going to talk about shortly.
I totally agree with you there. And this is going to be the first of our tangents on this. So I meant to tell you when we were together the other day, if you've not checked this guy out, you need to check him out on Instagram. I've been following him for a couple of years. It's a guy called the War Singer. The War Singer. Yeah, the guy does some incredible scratch built stuff. He did all of the Necron. What they're called? The Necron. There's like 7 of them. There's the guy that looks like the Grim Reaper.
Oh, I know who you mean, but the name eludes me. I mean, Necrons would never.
Catan. The shards of Satan.
Yes.
Or Catan. Yeah, he does custom versions of those. But get this, he does them over wire apertures with hot glue.
Oh,
they
I see that now. You said it.
That dude, they are so good.
That is, yeah, that's impressive. I mean, I think that's more to your taste than mine, but
yeah,
it's very impressive what he's doing there. I'm assuming we're talking about the same guy, because I cannot imagine anybody with the same name is doing the same thing on Instagram. But
that would be somewhat. Yeah, I think pretty good with it being the same guy.
Yeah, that's
the nuts out there. So check him out if you're over on Instagram. I think is it called the Warsinger, Will?
Yeah, it's the _Warsinger.
Check him out, the _Warsinger. Some absolute mad, just ridiculously good looking work there.
Oh, this chap some really cool Tyranids, necromorph flayers. I think they're based on Tyranids. And possibly looks like they are to me, but I might be wrong.
Ooh, necromorphs making me think of Dead Space there. Actually, another one of my interests. The first game terrified me, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in future. Good old Isaac. Is it Isaac Asimov? Is his name in that?
Isaac Asimov.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never played the game, but I know who Isaac Asimov is. Is he named after?
He's called Isaac. I'm sure he's called Isaac Asimov.
Is he named after the author? Isaac.
I feel like he might be now. I'm going to have to Google it.
Would make sense, wouldn't it? As
Just
in,
let me do that.
was it Asimov's principle of robotics?
Robotics,
Something like
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Isaac Clarke. Sorry, he's called Isaac Clarke. So I do remember this now. So I knew it was two things. So this is another tangent. He was called Isaac from Isaac Asimov, and Clarke is surname from Arthur C. Clarke. It was
That makes sense.
right. Okay. So back to Warhammer anyway. We were going to talk about the self-indulgent hobby updates. Yes. So in this section, we're going to talk about what we've done in the hobby in the past couple of weeks since we recorded the last episode, or in fact, never before as we recorded no episodes of this yet. So, Will, what are you working on at the moment? Do tell.
So, I mean, working on, I've basically just finished my Spearhead, as you know, and I've been sort of trying to get to the 2,000 point mark so we can start playing full AOS. So yeah, I've got plenty to be going on with.
What's Spearhead, Will? Tell us what the army is.
Oh, it's Fire Slayers. Sorry, I probably should have made that clear. You probably got that from the logo on on the podcast itself. But yeah, Fire Slayers definitely my thing. But yeah, so I've got and built the Spearhead, expanded that out with a Magma Droth, which I'm super excited to build and paint. The list is going to be as long as my army. I've got Gotrek, Gurnison, built and primed, ready to paint. Not done anything fancy with him. That dude does not need any conversion, doesn't need any embellishment. He is who he is. I'm striking out. What else have I got? I've got so much. I've got
your overlords as well, all sorted out.
Oh yeah, the overlords are all built. Yeah, I think they're going to be on the back burner while I do. Well, you know, the Fire Slayers are going to be my main priority, but yeah, they're going to be there for down the line, and just to have a bit of fun with as a Spearhead. But yeah, I've got tons of Fire Slayers basically. But
pretty much got all of the Fire Slayers, haven't you, at this point? I think.
Pretty much, yeah. I suppose the most exciting thing for me at the moment probably doesn't sound very exciting to anybody else, but my first real Fire Slayers conversion, I'm super excited for. Basically, I saw on Reddit. Popped up, one of the 40k subreddits popped up, and it was a Votan model. Is that how you say Votan?
Votan, yeah.
Votan. And I've just realised, actually, the aptly named Grimnir, I believe he's called. With a Y, not an I. Yeah, that's serendipitous, isn't it? But yeah, I saw that model of Grimnir, and I thought, oh, that would make a really cool conversion for a Fire Slayer, because, you know, space dwarves, but this guy is sort of hooded. He's got his staff, looks kind of magical. So I thought, oh, I'll keep an eye out for one of them. And then, lo and behold, there was one at my local hobby shop. Picked that up, took the 40k sort of stuff off it, fixed it up a little bit, stripped the paint. Just thinking about just some little ways I can make it pop as a Fire Slayer. But yeah, he's going to replace the Rune Master in my army, just because I'm not a huge fan of that sculpt, and just to have something a little bit different. Yeah, I'm super excited to start work on that. But yeah, I think it'll be a fairly minimal conversion, but I think I'll be able to do something cool with that. And yeah, it's exciting.
Sounds like you got a fair wodge of things on there. I know you there's a couple of things as well that you didn't mention that you've got on the pile there. So you've got your is it the Magmic Forge or whatever it's called?
The Magmic Fireforge, lovingly known as the Dwarf Pizza Oven. That's what I've been calling it. But yeah, I've got
I can't see that now.
The spells. You know, I got some more in the post today. I basically went crazy and sold a load of stuff on eBay, and then used the money to reinvest it in Warhammer. So yeah, basically I've got a full 2,000 point army to build. So I have got tons to be getting on with. But I've got a free weekend, so guess what I'm going to be doing?
Lucky man indeed.
But yeah, what about you? I think you know, I think you've been actively working on things more than me in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I recently finished painting all of the Soulblight Gravelords. I actually started collecting them by accident. So I got the Cursed City box, kind of, literally the box, and then I started collecting the models from the box. So I had a completed Cursor game to play it, and then from that I ended up actually with the entire Soulblight Gravelords range that G-dubs do. So that's kind of like my my shtick, is that I paint an entire range of models because I enjoy the painting aspect. But it turns out when we started playing Spearhead that I really, 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 really liked the vampires. And I felt quite vindicated that I had everything done. So that was great until then. Well, I think it was 5 days after completing everything, they announced that the new models are coming out. So all of my vampires are done, but my current project is no, it's not Soulblight Gravelords. I've finished all the Soulblight Gravelords until 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm on Slaves to Darkness now, so I've been painting Chaos Warriors. I've just finished 40 Chaos Warriors, and I've done 10 Chaos Knights and 6 Varangard, I think, is what's done now. So I'm just about to start painting my Chaos Spawn.
I really look forward to seeing them, actually.
I don't like the sculpts. They're awful. The kit is awful. People I don't know why. If anybody out there listening to this can tell me why people salivate over the Chaos Spawn kit, and you can put it in a way that a middle-aged Yorkshireman will understand, please do, because the models look daft, and I've tried my hardest with the multitude of bits that I get in the box, which you do get a lot of spare parts, but it seems like from the spare parts and the main torsos of them, that you can't make anything that looks good, Will. It just please, Games Workshop, look, if anybody out there is listening to this, stop messing about sculpting Space Marines all the time. Just let them lay for a bit. Resculpt the Chaos Spawn, because my days, do they need it? They're atrocious.
If they're going to be doing that, I think add some more Fire Slayers to the range. That would be what I would beg them to do. While we're on that subject of a wish list.
I was going to say give us some more Soulblight, but yeah, the kind of art, and I'm excited for that. So, yeah, other than the slaves, which I've got on deck at the moment, so I'm hoping to have the majority of that army finished. So I think I've got significantly more than 2,000 points. I think when I counted everything up, I had like 7,800 points of slaves.
Nice. Significantly more.
Yeah, it is. I didn't realise how many I had. And it's not my largest army. I've got over 10k of Soulblight.
Yeah, I mean, they do look super cool, though. I don't think I've never seen anybody do what you've done in the colours that you've done, just when I've been looking online. And, to see something different, but not a massive deviation from what you usually see. I think you've done a super job, and I know you'll play it down, but I think some of the effects that you've created painting the models look fantastic.
Oh, cheers, dude. I'm trying with them. I definitely wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm really looking forward to getting to the end of the project. Not because I want it done. I don't. But there's a couple of models that over the next couple of weeks I'm going to get a chance to paint. So I've got Be'lakor that I've had for a couple of years. He's one of my Jesus models, so I definitely want to get him painted, and then the entire scheme, like you say. So I've gone for a desaturated, muted look to the slaves, and then I've got a pop of really vibrant magenta. So giving the runes and the face masks. So I don't really like the human side of it. So like everybody's got an helmet on. There are no bare-faced warriors in there or anything like that. So there's just this one pop of really vibrant color on each one. And if you know anything about the lore of Be'lakor, is wreathed in shadow, and he's got like this sword that emits like black fire. And it was like, how am I going to do this so it looks cool? It's just not like how everybody else has done it. And yeah, I'm excited to take the scheme that I've got, and I think it looks pretty cool. I don't think it's fantastic, but I want to see that on Bellicor. That is what I'm working towards getting done. I'm excited to have that done.
We do a lot of, we have a lot of similar ideas that we do like to kind of go against the norm somewhat. I mean, looking at some of the stuff you painted, it isn't, to the standard colours or, what you normally see. And I think same with me. We're at very different levels in, how we paint and, the skill level. I think that's fair to say. I'd say I'm comfortable with mine being tabletop quality, whereas yours are very different to mine. But what we both do is we both like to try different things. We both like to do something a little different to what you see in the Battle Tome or what you see in White Dwarf. And I mean, that's the fun side of the hobby for me. That's just another thing, experimenting with different colour schemes, going for something a little bit wacky and trying to think of, lore reasons why it makes sense. I think we're both quite similar in that respect.
Yeah, and I think that plays into what we talked about earlier with playing more towards the narrative side of things. I mean, we don't play the more casual gamey side of things. I mean, I know we're not played full far AOS yet, but we're looking at doing the Path to Glory kind of thing and playing the narrative games, possibly some like asymmetrical versions of it. So having a reason and a background and like an interplay between those two armies and how they interact with each other, or just the overall theme of the army and how that plays into the battle tactics that you might choose, even though they might not be the best battle tactics, but they're thematically fluffy and it plays towards it, I think is really fun. It's kind of, we're deviating off of the topic of the segment, but I think this is what we wanted to talk about, is this kind of engagement that we want with the hobby, rather than it just being a game. When it gets to the point of, I think it's worth saying, I think this is how and why we met, how we did, and kind of why we got on. So there's a whole story that we'll probably go into further down the line, but it involved a PowerPoint presentation of whether we were going to actually continue being friends or not. It was like, this is what I'm looking for this relationship. Very Sheldon-esque. But I came before Sheldon.
But it was very much a PowerPoint presentation over a coffee, wasn't it?
Yes. It was almost like an interview.
All for it. Yeah, it was. And I'm not sure who was being interviewed and who was but it seemed to go well. Here we are doing a podcast now.
I'll let you know within 5 to 7 days.
Yeah, I think I'm still on probation. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, you'll get signed off soon enough, I'm sure. But it's that kind of fluffy interaction. And when I'd reached out to my local hobby shops, my local hobby groups, when people play Warhammer, they play Warhammer, they play a game. It doesn't, none of the stuff we've talked about already in certainly this episode, none of the lore and stuff, people are into it, but it doesn't really knit together for the majority of people with the game. So it's kind of like that juxtaposition between the narrative, the lore, and the narrative version of the game, even if you're playing it as casual match player, and how those things link together. And anybody that I'd kind of spoken to before us kind of tried to have a gaming relationship with, it didn't work. It just lapsed into this methodical math hammer game of taking a meta list, and it's like, well, at this point we can just play a game statistically. We're almost into the fantasy football kind of era. You could simulate the outcome. There was no fun in that. Where I think what we're looking for and what we've managed to achieve and capture is we've got that interest, we've got that passion where we can talk to each other about it, which is a huge part of it. But we've also got similar views, or very, very, very closely aligned views of what we want out of the wider hobby and why we're doing it. And it ain't about winning, it ain't about just rolling the largest number of dice, because it's
a good job for me, isn't it? It's not winning.
Hey man, it's mostly me. Like, this is the only time in my entire adult life where I've consecutively won things. But I mean, you're doing better now. I think your problem was like you didn't have your army sorted, and we were both learning the game. So I'm still, in that respect, I'm still maybe 5-6 games ahead of you.
Yeah, something like that. I think. Yeah, I mean, I'm. it's not about winning or losing, as you say, and it seems like such a cliched thing, but even when I've lost, we've had such a good laugh. It doesn't matter, Just the last game we played, there was 2 points in it, I think. At the end, it was quite a swingy game. Every week that I'm playing with my Fire Slayers, I'm learning sort of more tactical quirks, and that's kind of coming together a little bit more. And I think give it a few more sessions, I think we're going to see these close games where there's a few sort of gaps that I'm trying to fill, where I'm not scoring points. But we've really deviated off the topic, but it's fun regardless of winning or losing.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's good to have structure to the pod, I think, and we will, going forward, we will stick to discrete topics. But for the first one, I think it's good just to see what we were going to talk about and how it works. And I think this is a really good case in point. And it's this sort of conversation that I think was the spark of the idea of perhaps we should do something like this, because I think there's so many other people out there that want to talk about this sort of thing and not just talk about what the latest meta list is or yada yada yada, this and that and the other. It's like we're just normal people having fun with the hobby, and we really enjoy doing it, and we like to share that with each other and other people. I mean, there's such a vibrant local community that we've got as well. I mean, where we both part of, well, we met via that community in the first instance
when I moved into the area.
So I think it's good to talk about that, but so Slaves to Darkness in short is what I'm on, and that will be my next spearhead that I'm probably going to play with. I mean, no, I'm lying. It's not, but we'll cover that in the next. We'll cover that in the next segment.
I mean, you could take your pick, couldn't you?
I've got a couple at the moment. I've not got that many. I think we've got 7 between us. We do have a list.
Well, we'll see if we win a competition. Might.
Absolutely, yeah. Shall we wrap this one up and go on to the next segment? I don't know how long we talked about this self-indulgent hobby update, but I've painted. Will's painted.
I haven't painted.
Will's not painted.
I've bought and built, and I'm yet to paint, but that's cool.
He's one of those hobbyists. Don't worry about it.
I very much am. Yeah,
it's fine. Okay, right. We're gonna leave that one there. Now, this is where we would normally ask you guys what you've been up to. Or we'll read out some comments. Perhaps we'll read out some comments. We're assuming anybody will listen to this.
I mean, I'm sure we could probably convince our missus to listen. I'm not sure if they would, but, mine tends to go to sleep listening to a podcast, so I could kind of just shoot on it in.
Mine will 100% not listen. I mean, perhaps if we talked about squigs, she would. She does like squigs, so
who knows?
But that's it. So instead we will gloss over this segment, but we will, however, talk about what's going up for pre-order this week instead, because I'm excited about it. As you might have gathered, I'm a fan of the old Soulblight Gravelords.
Just a bit, yeah.
I love me some vampires, and I'm excited. So why am I overly excited? Well, as I said, I painted the entire Soulblight range except the Black Knights, and I begrudgingly painted the current Graveguard because they were required for Curse City, and I found them at a reasonable price. Now, I hate those models, Will. Hate them. And the Black Knights, I hate them so much. This has never happened, that I refuse to paint them, and the completionist in me that likes to 100% an entire range of models hurts. I physically feel pain that I couldn't paint those models. But
what is it about them?
Everything.
What is it about them that you hate? Everything.
Yes. Every single thing.
From a design standpoint.
Yes, yeah. They look so out of place to me. And I realise it's subjective, but I mean, I've never played them. I've never looked at them closely. But this is just like a conversation we had yesterday when you were talking about that guy that looks like Elvis, Morrissey. And it's like, you don't like Morrissey and the Smiths. It's like, and I'm like, no. But you know what? I've never actually listened to any of their music, but just based off of the aesthetic of that guy looking like the Elvis dude from Big Bag Beetleborgs, I don't like them. And that's exactly what it is with the Black Knights and the Graveguard.
you're not the only person in the world to not like that man. He's said some very questionable things, so, But yeah, he does have an Elvis quality, especially in his, I think he's not even middle-aged now. I think he's past that, so.
Well, yeah, no, I just don't like the Graveguard stuff. I thought compared to the fantastic sculpts that they did with the Death Rattle that came with Curse City, and I mean, if you've looked closely at the Curse City sculpt, those models were they were next level for Games Workshop. For me, that kind of like marked a significant change in design aesthetic and production quality for what GW were doing. And that doesn't align with a lot of the rest of the Soul Blight range. And I was very excited to find out that we had some new Soul Blight coming, because I genuinely didn't expect it, because they only very recently, in the past few years, got an update from the Vampire counts. So they got a lot of new stuff in 3rd edition. And some of the stuff I genuinely didn't think we would see, but when they announced that we were getting, I think it was the LVO, wasn't it? Just before Christmas. So it'll be in end of 2024. They showed what was coming. So it was a while back, and I thought we might get the Graveguard and the Black Knight. So they followed the same aesthetic, because they really were long in the tooth. No pun intended.
It's a fair comment there. I think if any range was due a refresh, and I think to me they look a little more serious than they used to. If that makes sense, they look less comical, and I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's really up your street. That's what you want to see from these guys. Whereas, I think we look at things in a very different way. I've got little angry dudes that kind of look like they could be a friend as well as bash you about, but you're very much into the darkness, the grim element, almost a horror aesthetic, I think.
Yeah,
if that's fair.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I know we've not talked about this, and this is another marginal tangent that we're going to go on. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and a lot of the Black Library stuff, and other than kind of, I tend to listen to fiction about the army that I'm currently painting. So when I was painting a lot of the Magakin, it was all Nurgle stuff I was listening to, yada yada yada, and I found through when I was listening, I think it was the Canis and Toll audiobook, as I was painting the Curse City stuff, I found the Warhammer horror imprint, and like it's 40k and AOS. There's you should check some of the books out.
I haven't checked that out.
It's like a subline of Warhammer fiction. So there's some like really bleak horror. I mean, it's still, is it super well written that's going to get like Times bestseller? No, but is it in our sphere of interest while being tonally different to other things that you might have read? Yeah, I think it is. There's some really good stuff on there. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that's what I do enjoy about this new aesthetic, especially when they showed some of the other models as well. So, like you say, a lot of the models in the Soul Blight range were pretty old. All of the newer stuff kind of came from that Curse City box set, which the majority of that now has been moved to Legends. So I was like, they're going to retire a load of this stuff and they're going to completely change the army, literally just as I'd finished painting the entire thing. So I'd sunk a significant amount of time and money into having that range to learn the game with, and got it all completed. But it actually looks like now they may be keeping everything. So the new, what they're called, Barrow Knights, Barrow Guard, are 1-to-1 replacements for the Grave Guard and Black Knights. they do look more horrific, which is really, really cool. Depending on how you paint them, you can do what you want. But I think they're really going to work well with some of the other new models that they've got coming out as well. I mean, the Prince Vordai, I think that's how you pronounce it. I've got the current one on Zombie Dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, that model looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it's a pre-order as soon as it comes out. The new Vampire Lord on Nightmare Steed, I'll be getting 2 of those because I want both versions of it. I mean, obviously, I want the bald version with an axe because I'm a bald dude and I love axes. So it's
Strange,
like that.
I'm looking at that model as we speak. Yeah,
it's just amazing. But there's something about like as my headcanon won't let me have a vampire lord with an axe. He needs to have a sword, even though I want him to have an axe. So,
any particular reason why?
Vampire. Yes. All right. So here we go. Let's just get into it. And this is again another example of the type of thing that we have. In my head, vampires are quite noble. I mean, you get the bestial kind of vampires, and I think this is kind of reflected in this range a lot, and the divergence between the soul blight and the flesh eater courts. So you've got the complete bestial, raging vampire delusional mentals that are the flesh eater courts, and then you've got all of the subsections in the soul blight. So you've got things like the Avangori, so Lukavashi, the Mother of Nightmares, the one that looks like the big. It's a very polarizing model. You either love it or you hate it. So the kit makes her or the Vengarian Lord. You can go into that side of things, or you can go into the more nobility, higher class.
I get it. The axe is elegant.
It just
weapon.
doesn't work.
I know what you mean.
I can see it more on there if you went down the route of kind of like the Radakar and I can't remember what they're called. Called something beginning with a V. Man, what is that sub?
Well, now you're asking.
What are them called?
I do see your point though.
Yeah.
As far as weapons go, vampires don't scream axes. To me.
Yeah, it just doesn't do it for me at all. So I think I will have to have it either magnetized and I'll display it on my shelf. With a sword, but when I play it, I'll probably have the other way around. I'll display it with the axe and then have it with the sword. But I think the different head sculpts as well lend themselves quite nicely to it. It completely changes the look of the model. I don't know if there's any other options in there. Vicross, that's it. Vicross, is that how you pronounce it? Vicross.
Take your word for it.
The more bestial vampires, it's almost like the cross between werewolves and vampires. That has more of an axie aesthetic. I think one of the I think she's got Iba Volker. I think she has a small hand hatchet rather than a sword. But that noble class of vampires like the Blood Knights, all of the von Carstein line, if you read any of the fiction, it's swords. There's something about that. The aesthetic works more for me, even though I want to keep it nice and dark. But
I think it's the right type of sword as well. We're not talking, two-handed greatsword or claymores. It's very much it's that noble aspect and the elegance of the weapon. I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, it just works for me. I mean, even the Vampire Lord, I think she's got like a mace, and one of the Blood Knights I think has a mace as a build option, and it seems for me it doesn't work. And I did buy my Vampire Lord model second hand, so it was already built with that. But I would have, if I'd have built it from scratch, and I could have converted it if I'd have had a decent sword, but I didn't. I'd have given them a sword rather than a mace. In fact, I might repaint another one of it further down the line if I ever get one.
I'm fully in agreement. I think it makes sense for them to have swords rather than maces. I think, mace to me is a crude and inelegant weapon that you would expect some a berserker, maybe a chaos warrior to have, a troll, that kind of thing. It's a crude weapon. I know, I'm with you there.
That's it. Yeah. So I was really excited anyway to see those new models, and obviously we're getting some faction terrain, which is great. We're getting some manifestations as well, which again I didn't think we were going to get. I honestly thought they were going to keep the generic ones, but that's fantastic. And then the biggest surprise was we're getting another Kado Ezekiel sculpt with his little ensemble that comes as a. I think they're a regiment of renowned now that you've got to take them as. So I think he's got his
I think that's right.
Blood Child Sysandra and that necromancer dude Aurelius and the weird snake whose name I can't remember the name of.
The weird snake.
The weird snake with two heads.
You've got so much to look forward to. It's going to be like Christmas has come early, but yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, the Blades of the Hollow King.
Blades of the Hollow King, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that echoes everything you just said. I mean, all you've got to do is look at the weapons on them guys, and they've hit the nail on the head there, haven't they?
Yeah. It just 100% works for me. I mean, it was quite serendipitous as well. I'd literally, the day that this got announced, finished the second Kado book. I mean, Kado is my favorite character in all of AOS. I mean, he's like in 40k it's Belisarius Call. In AOS it's Kado Izuchia, however you pronounce his name. Ezekiel. It's like
that's what I'm going to call him. When I see him on the table, he's going to be known as Easy Chair.
That's what I call him. I mean that is a bad looking word. Ezekiel, yeah, I think it is.
I would guess Ezekiel, but it's whatever you want it to be. But now I can. The more I get to know you, the more I get why you like these guys. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm excited to play them. I think once I've finished this wodge of new models that are coming out for the army, it gives me such versatility in how I can play that force, because depending on how you take them, you literally can lead into any of the archetypes for an army pretty much. I can't think of any of the archetypes that you can't have a play style that these guys can adapt to.
Yes.
And aesthetically, I'm invested. I really like how they look. Even though I've smashed through the painting of them, and they're in no way the kind of paint job that I normally do, because I painted them fast as game pieces. So compared to my Maggotkin, I mean the Maggotkin stuff took me like 3 years to paint that range, whereas this has taken me like 4 months to smash through.
Yeah, but that's you've painted to play there though, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's the goal with them.
And I'm happy with that. I may come back and revisit a couple of the models, especially some of the newer ones. But I'm just excited. I'm just excited to get this book. In fact, to come back to what we were talking about earlier, I suppose, in my time in the hobby, this right now, literally the day before the pre-order for this new box set opens up. This is the first time I have ever been excited for a release, like actually excited. I've been excited to get a new model, a new toy, something to build or something to paint, but I'm legitimately excited to get this box set, to read this book, to kind of just next week or whenever this comes out. It's going to be in 2 weeks' time, and I'm so excited to just talk at you about like, Will, have you seen this? Have you seen this?
I mean, let's face it, you've been waiting how many weeks for them to actually announce it, and they've left it as late as they possibly could. And it's been the same messages every weekend for the last 7 weeks, I want to say.
Yep. Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense why you're excited. If the shoe was on the other foot and they were releasing all these new models for the Fire Slayers, I'd be just as excited, if not more. I'd be giddy, and I'm hoping that I will be at some point.
I think they will be there, and I think that's something that we need to definitely not talk about now, but perhaps in the next episode, this is something that we should talk about, because without giving anything away to how that conversation may go, I think from the article that appeared on Warcom earlier, so Warhammer Community, about what's included in that battle tome from the breakdown that somebody in the community has already done. There are a number of units. So as I said earlier, if you don't know, some of the Soulblight units got pushed back into Legends, so you can't play them competitively. You can still play them if you want, but they're not actively in the game. I thought a lot of the stuff that I'd already painted very recently would be made redundant. So things like the Blood Palquin, the Coven Throne, the Mortis Engine, Manfred, Neferata, Arkan the Black, the Corpse Cart, and some other bits and pieces. The Corpse Cart I still think is gonna go, but they've made reference specifically to those older units being in there and them maintaining those as viable gaming pieces. So I think some of the rumours around other factions being relegated into perhaps the old world, this may give you some more hope that you may see some new sculpts in other ranges as well, because I don't think anybody saw this amount of stuff coming from this particular faction.
No, they've gone in hard. Let's face it. It's good to see, though. I'm, as much as I love vampires as much as the next person, but it's genuinely nice to know that one of my friends is this excited, because he's already invested in these dudes and they're getting a lot more content, and it means I'm going to get to see them in reality, whereas it's not models that I would buy, but I'm going to see what you're going to do with them and how they're going to look in real life, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, man, this is good, and I'll be equal the same when you get. Well, you are going to get your book at some point, aren't you? So,
yeah,
hopefully you'll get it.
Such words.
You will. You'll definitely get, and you're going to get at least a unit. So
yeah,
happy times.
I mean, as long as it's got a bit of variance as to what's already there, I'm happy. Give me some female dwarfs or some form of cavalry, and I'll be happy.
That's it. I mean, I think we'll see something interesting coming down the line. Hopefully we'll see something more like the war bands that we saw, if Warcry is still a thing. But that's one for a future conversation, I think.
That's a different conversation altogether.
It is. I suppose, well, if anybody's out there listening to this and you're excited for Soulblight as well, and this makes it out there at all, let us know. Drop us a message on something. What unit are you particularly looking forward to? Do you think this is going to be a good army? I mean, at launch, let's face it, all Games Workshop armies are overpowered and then they get fixed. But it does seem that Soulblight are particularly potent in a lot of areas from what they've released so far. So it'll be interesting to see, what do you guys think? Is that likely to be the case, or are you guys they're a little bit more clued up than perhaps me and Will, in the know on something, and they're not quite as powerful as they seem? Because, to be fair, everything seems pretty powerful to me because I know so little about the actual game.
That's it. I mean, we look at a page of numbers and think that looks like it's going to be powerful, but yeah, let us know, and let us know where you stand on axes versus swords with vampires.
Absolutely. And if you've got any vampires with axes, send us some pictures. I would love to see them. Send us your Instagram links. Let's do that.
100%.
Okay. Shall we wrap this segment up with some chicken wing eating and get to the next one? That's episode 0 in the bag, as it were. Shall we shall we tell people how they can perhaps find us? We don't know yet because a lot of the stuff we've not actually set up. Some stuff we have.
We've not actually, no, but you'll find us where you expect to find us. Really, there's going to be Instagram page, Facebook page. You can get in touch with us over email. When I remember what the email address is,
the can indeed. It is Warhammer and Wings at gmail.com.
That's the one. Think I'd have known that. But yeah, thanks for taking the time. If anybody is listening, you've probably got a feel as to how we are and how we talk when we're together. But yeah, next episode will probably be in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, Wayne, what are you saying?
I'm Avid, not very much, seemingly. I think you said everything there. Yeah, Warhammer and Wings at gmail.com. You can find us over on Instagram. You can find this podcast where you would find all of the good podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and over on YouTube as well, at Warhammer and Wings over on YouTube. So you can find us in all the normal places other than TikTok. Remember that we are not on TikTok.
Yeah.
We will not be doing that.
All left feet between us, I think.
Yes. None of that stuff.
I mean, I've never seen you dance actually, so we don't
stomp.
know.
I stomp. I'm watching stomp. Yeah,
you stomp by fall.
Well, there we go. I mean, yeah. I don't really know what you listen to, but I kind of listen to metal, super black metal. That's about it. A classical, bit of grindcore, bit of hip hop. Not mumble rap. None of this modern hip hop. My hip hop education stopped in like 2005. But
I tried to keep up with it, but it's not relevant. Not relevant to me anymore. I'm not down with the kids. But yeah, I'll just keep listening to Iron Maiden until the day I die, and I'm happy with it.
There you go. That's more information than you guys probably needed about us. Right. We're gonna go. I'm gonna say goodbye. See you later.
See you later.